Ugh, this question is so annoying. Already, you probably hate these sentence placement questions where we've got to figure out where a sentence goes. It can feel like you're reading a lot and have to think about a lot. Here, though, I guess they've solved one problem. We're certainly not reading a lot. We're reading this one little question. Why wouldn't they? And we have to place that somewhere. So yeah, you're reading less, but oh my gosh, this is like nothing to go on. So what do we do? How do we figure out what we are looking for in this question? Well, narrow your focus. Try to think about less stuff. And I know it's hard to be like, well, there's not much less I can do here. Well, try to give yourself something to latch onto, some idea to keep in mind and focus on so that when you read this paragraph, you're not just reading. You're reading with purpose. My thing to focus on would be that word they. Okay? Who are they? Who are we talking about? Presumably, the sentence before this one is going to introduce they, whoever they are, right? It's going to talk about whatever that group is. So that's my focus. What could this mean? So let's dive in here. Sentence 1, upon the arrival of the digital camera, professional photographers harumphed that they produced ugly, low-resolution images. Why wouldn't they? Well, maybe they are the photographers, and why wouldn't they harumph? Why wouldn't they complain because they're getting these bad images? That makes sense to me. Yet eventually, the vast majority of them traded film for megapixels. Well, again, they is the them, and them are the photographers. So why wouldn't the photographers trade in their cameras for these new digital ones? That also makes sense to me. Let's keep going. The latest digital cameras take pictures so crisp that the images in them appear to be die-cut. Even today's humblest smartphones snap bright, sharp photos. Why wouldn't they? Well, in that case, they would be the smartphones. Why wouldn't they snap bright, sharp photos? Well, because they're phones. Like, that didn't necessarily have to happen. So I don't think it's going to be after sentence 4 here. That's kind of a random thing. It's not the right they. It's weird. A few contemporary photographers, however, have embraced an anachronistic method that was state-of-the-art technology when it was invented in 1851, wet plate photography. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they embrace a 150-year-old technology? Because that's stupid. Because that's weird. That's not normal. And so now I think we're trying to understand the purpose of this question. It's a rhetorical question. The answer should be obvious. However, they are still going to give us the answer to this question. The difference is they're not going to just come out and say they wouldn't because, right? They're going to hint at the answer in some other way. And if we put this question after 5, it's kind of left up to us to answer the question, and it would be a weird answer. Like, there's a lot of reasons why people in 2020, or whenever this passage was written, there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't adopt a technology from 1851. It's probably bad. It's probably hard to use. So this stops being a good question to ask when the answer isn't obvious anymore. So that's going to get rid of choice D for us. We don't want to end the paragraph with this. We want to answer the why wouldn't they in the moment. And that leaves us with sentences 1 and 2. And so we got to really think about where does it fit better here. Upon the arrival of the digital camera, professional photographers harumphed that they produced ugly, low-resolution images. Why wouldn't they complain about that? Of course they would complain, because it's a bad picture. I would expect sentence 2 to kind of answer that and kind of say the same thing. Like, why wouldn't they complain? Because it's a bad picture, right? It's gonna provide that answer for me in a different way. Yet it doesn't do that. It shifts the sentence. It shifts the paragraph. Yet eventually, the vast majority of the photographers traded film for megapixels. So sentence 1 says digital cameras are bad. Let's do some dumb summaries here. Bad, negative. Sentence 2 is kind of saying the opposite, that it's positive. And the sentence we're trying to add, this question, is supposed to kind of be a continuation. It's supposed to lead us into an answer. How can this second sentence answer the first one if we're getting different meanings out of them. Something's broken here. But if we go to sentence 3, the latest digital cameras take pictures so crisp that the images in them appear to be die cut. That's also positive. It's answering the question of why wouldn't they trade in their old cameras for new digital ones? Of course they would, because the latest digital cameras take pictures so crisp that the images in them appear to be die cut. Sentence 3 is explaining why sentence 2 happened. And the question that we're trying to insert is just a clever device, a clever way of leading us from this situation in sentence 2 to the reason that we're in that situation in sentence 3, right? The people are taking on these cameras that they used to complain about. They're using these digital cameras. Why wouldn't they complain about them, or why wouldn't they adopt them? Well, they're better. That's what they're saying. They're better now in sentence 3. That is really tricky. So B is the answer here, just to be very clear. It's very tricky, and normally you're not going to have so little to go on. This to me just feels very tricky because we need to understand like what a rhetorical question is. Let me just write that down. Rhetorical question. That's how this is functioning here. Maybe you've heard of this phrase in English class. It's basically a question where the answer is kind of obvious, so we don't really need to answer it. But we're kind of still answering it here anyway by moving on and providing the explanation. It's not like a direct answer, which makes it still a rhetorical question, but it's leading us on to the next thing. It's providing a nice transition from the contrast in sentences 1 and 2 to the similarity between 2 and 3. It's letting us go from why these people are adopting the cameras that they hated so much, and it's explaining that, of course they would, they're better now. They're better cameras. If you got this wrong, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it, but I do think that the overall strategy you want to adopt is what we did here, which is focus on a word or a phrase, something smaller in these sentences that you're supposed to place, and see if that can help you understand the structure and where it might go in the passage. In this case, it was a pronoun. Pronouns are great. Sometimes it's other like transition-y words. Sometimes you're thinking in terms of negatives and positives, but the narrower you can make it, the more likely you'll spot the connections between the sentences and the meaning and get these questions right.